So, nag-break po. Sir. So, ngayon, I'll be discussing yung topic na assign sa akin is yung corrective feedback and questions, and then afterwards yung questions on the platform. So, clear ko lang first week. So, yung, so corrective feedback in the classroom. So, when it's a corrective feedback, um, ano yung natin na so, ito daw yung reply, yung feedback sa may status. So, hindi. So, concept feedback natin, ito yung action yung binibigay ng PSL teachers if they encounter or kami pansin nila or pagkaroon ng error during the class, taken grammar ang isang student. This lecture is a combination of 8 studies in which ang focus sa mga studies ay is yung corrective feedback sa classroom. Different types of feedbacks, ano yung most common, ano yung mga factor na affect ng feedback, ano yung feedback na effective sa mga student. So, yun. So, study one is recast in content based. So, it is study of Ryan is good and Mila Ranto. So, Mr. and Ranto observed 9 and 11 when it holds with the French immersion classroom. So, the item had 6 ways teacher to stand the errors. So, yung una is yung, right? Ito baka dun makapansin. So, yung number one is yung explicit correction. So, explicit correction, it refers to, so it refers to the explicit provision of a correct. So, it is a straightforward when we so directly tells the student the correct form. For example, letter is yun. Yan. So, yung other is not doing the dog ran faster. And then yung future response, fasting doesn't exist. But fast does not take the LY. So that's why I think people is direct to the point. No? So wala pa nililibre kung ano yung malinaw sa yung i-address sa ating future. So, kaya nga po explicit correction. So, first type. So, next is the recast. So, CCAS is like time credit. So recast involved the equal check formulation of all parts of student utterance minus the error. So recasts are generally implicit and that they are not introduced by the mean, this word, or you should say. So, kung yung kanina is explicit record feedback on direct to the point, straightforward, inaayos siya alam kung ano yung mga student, hindi naman sa recast, let's get out of it. So, what yung type ng corrective feedback when which hindi napapansin ng student or hindi mo directly yung sabi sa student na ito yung mali, ito yung kailangan mo itama. So, for example, sa student, why you don't like more on the student yung yung literature. Why don't you like math? Because kung ulitin mo yung as a whole na sinabi ng Stibet, and then before you mag ng tama and then iulitin mo sa lecture. Example is, ang malinis yung why you don't like. dapat is why don't you want more? So, repass in detail. So, hindi siya kailangan use this word, so repass. If you formulate students correctly, but doesn't specifically point to error. So, yun repass. So, number three, as a 674 playback is clarification request. So clarification request it requires the students either that their utterance has been misunderstood by the teacher or that the utterance is incorrect in some way and that a repetition or reformulation is required. So it's having clarification, clarification request. So it invites the student to repeat or clarify the statement na yan. Like for example, if one, so yeah. How often do you wash the dishes? So yung sabi dito, and then ang sabi ng student, the plan is 14. And as a clarification request, that's something, ang sabi yung teacher is, excuse me. So in this exchange of utterances, excuse me can be uh, for the phrase used by the teacher to ask for clarification. Like one, clarification was so 14. And then, so parang ang nangyari is parang hindi lang narinig ng student. So, inulit yung 14. And then, inulit yung teacher about the 14 what? So, then mo nag-another 14 and then yung student 14 for a week. So, yun yung clarification request. And then, kasi sabi ko, yung Naritas, this is a physics formulation. Ginamit ko ng figure, 14 times a week. So, hindi ko sinabi na it's not 14 for a week. Yung sinabi na you must use 4 times. Hindi niya sinabi na kailangan kami ka 4 times. Instead, ulit niya yung utterance, yung sa Ritas. Pero sa clarification, sabi ko nga, hindi ka ng clarification yung sa utterance student. Kasi these utterance or things should be allowed to student to think critically kung ano yung banda yung tama na or para sabihin ulit yung utterance na yun. So yun yung number 3. So number 4, we have the metalinguistic feedback. So pag sinabi ni metalinguistic feedback, it contains comments, information, or questions related to the correctness of the student utterance without explicitly providing the correct form. So yung kanina is clarification lang. Kaya pinapaulit mo or hindi ka ng clarification. Kasi clarification sa student. Dito sa metalinguistic is, ayun na nga, magbibigay ka ng hints or ask questions about the grammar rule. So, for example dito, you look at the people yesterday. So, instead, if ito, ang ginamit is yung explicit, so ang sasabihin sa ng teacher is, the correct term is look, or it is sa past tense. Pero dahil sa materials, it would pa ang sasabihin teacher, what's the ending with that and verbs when we talk about the past? So, hindi sinabi na ang sinusunod is yung past tense ng ilo. So, tanong niya kung ano yung general na ginagawa sa past tense. And then, student, ED or D. Doon nagkaroon ng awareness yung student, no? Yung utterance niya prior to that question is mali. Kasi ang gamit niya is will at the people yesterday. So, hindi naka-past form. And for example, linguistic, it is more on the grammar side of the correcting process of the feedback, corrective feedback. Next is the elicitation. So, elicitation naman is first at least three techniques that will use to directly elicit correct form from the students. So, first, learn that yung and type it. So, we have elicit completion of your own utterance of someone. It's that. And second, this question to elicit. So, how to say blank next? And three, ask the student to reformulate the utterance. So elicitation means you elicit some words and then yung elicit na word na yun, yung prompt na yun, ang mag-comply dun or mag-fill dun is yung students. Like for example, father cleans the plate. Ang referring teacher, excuse me, he cleans the eh, plates, sabi ng student. So yun sa elicitation. And then we have the last, I think it's the sixth last circuit according to Mr. Miranda na kanina. So, dito naman is um, repetition refers to the teacher's repetition of the student erroneous utterance in one case teacher that adjusts their intonation so as to highlight error. So, the student we is, and then we is? We is? So, we is ba? So, ang sinasabi ng we is? Parang sinasabi mo, tama ba yung we is? Sabi ko, we is as well if we got 3 so 6 na ng feedback according to the study. And internationally, they found na key tasks were the most frequent, but uptake was least frequent. So, yung uptake was least frequent after the recall. So, pag sinabi ng uptake, naging session lang. Pag sinabi ng uptake, it yung parang feedback naman ng student. So, kunwari, gumamit ng student ng corrective feedback, ano naman yung response ng student? So, yung response na yun is uptake. Yeah. So, is yung responded to more clarification request. So, bakit? Kasi nga, na kasi tinatanong, so parang patanong mostly itong clarification, to meta-linguistic, and then yung elicitation. So this shows that even if recas are subtle, students may not always notice them, especially in content-focused question where meaning is emphasized over form. So, yung 6 types according to Mr. and Ranta. So next, so ito yun. Meron pala tayo dito yung mga letters. So have explicit, teacher clear tells, my class you can please in the email, teacher ignores message, and repetition. So yun yung study one. And have, ating is. So study two, so study two, so is Wordcast and Private Speech by Ota 2000. So, um, Ota 2000. So, usually, so usually, yung sa banggit na kanina, Likas, so Likas is one of the corrective feedback when discover or na-identify nila Mister and Ranta. Yung study ko naman si Ota. So, dito, ang study ni Ota is, in this study is that Ota wanted to see how learners react to Likas in real time. So, she recorded where students said to themselves during lesson focus in grammar and metalinguistics. So this self-speech, self-directed speech is called private speech. So pag sinabi natin private speech, ito yung self-directed, so ito yung self-talk. So sinasabi ng sa kanyang sarili, so it is not intended para marinig ng teacher. So that's private speech. From the word private, yourself. So the key finding was that yun, so the key finding was that learners noticed recast, so especially when the correction was aimed at the class or at another student, so rather than own mistakes. So for example, if the teacher reformulated another student's sentence, some learners would quietly repeat or think about the correct form themselves. So, dito nga pala, i-con ko lang. So, paano niya narinig yung mga private speech ng student if private speech for themselves? So, ang ginawa niya sa method is yan, naglakay siya naglakay siya ng microphones dito. Speech record with microphones. I'm not sure, basta ang sabi is gumamit siya ng microphones nakalagay sa baba para kahit yung maikli niya o mahina na self-talk is maririnig and mare-record. So, yun yung ginamit niya as a method para itali yung mga data and reactions ng mga private speech ng students during the recast. And sabi nga, they notice recast. Uh-huh. They notice recast more if they student notice recast more if yung student is hindi sila. So, ang ako nito is because instead kasi hindi sila yung may mali or hindi sila yung may error. So, usually, mas natutulog sila kapag hindi sila yung may mali. Kasi if sila yung nakaka-experience ng pikas o sila yung na-expose sa RICAS. Instead na ipa-process nila yun internally to correct yung tama and process sila to adapt yung tama na yun, is ang nangyayari is nagiging anxious sila kasi nga mali. So, instead na mag-focus sila sa error, mas nag-focus sila sa sarili nila which is yung anxiety nila and then dun sa may nang-focus sa anxiety kasi nga nagkamali sila and then like self nila. So, more private speech from Lucas addressed to others. So, yun sa study to ni Ota and Ota lang. So, sa study 3 naman, this study observe adult ESL learners, how they responded to teachers' corrections. So, particularly, Lucas, well, Lucas, gaya ng sabi ko kanina sa second study, so, or in the first study dun sa last minute uptake, ito yung respond ng student if they experience corrective feedback. So, the researcher found that Lucas were the most common type of feedback, and important learners often responded immediately to this called uptake. So, Lucas is so, parang same sila na nakuha na recast din sa research ni Ellis and Dr. Mendoza. So, recast din, pinapansin nila na most frequent use. And learners often responded to recast. And yeah, recast related. So, a key factor here was context. So, which is madilis as we have different types of context. And interestingly, this contrasts with younger learners in content-based classroom, the rate casts were often unnoticed. So age, class, type, and prior instruction influence how learner perceive and respond to recasts. So yung sabi nag-open siya na yung pag-respond pa lang ng students sa recast. Yung uptake ng students sa recast, it vary in different factors. And sa study 4, think dito na yung papasok ang ating feedback in context. Ayan. So, study 4, this study examined how the context of classroom interaction affects teacher feedback and learners' response. So, the researcher categorized classroom talk info for context. So, they found the learners made the most error during communication exchanges where focus was on using English. So dito, we have Oliver Martin, who, di ba kasi nga, sabi dun sa una, yung respond. ng student is sabi ko yung response ng student nakadepende dun sa or merong nakadepende sa different factors. So, we have age, class, dito sabi naman is yung sa context. So, and identify na merong 4 contexts in which there's an exchange or there's an interaction between the student and the teacher. So, first is the content exchange. Content exchange, ito yung pinag-uusapan nila is about sa content ng curriculum. And then, dun sa management exchanges, dito naman is ang pinag-uusapan nila is yung how they organize and how paano mag-behave yung mga students sa English classroom. And then we have the communication exchange. Communication exchange, ito naman is yung, ah, tawag dito, free students. So it is the use of English in a meaningful way. So yun yung communication exchanges. And then we have the last context in the language focus. So pag sinabi language focus, so more on lectures and social grammar, something like that. Verb agreement. So dito, most errors in communication. So, bakit sinabi na most errors in communication context? Kasi nga, hindi naman naka-base sa communication exchanges, mas naka-focus kasi ang student to relay the message na to be always 100% correct in grammar. So, pinaka-goal lang is to be understood para maintindihan. Kaya most errors sa communication. However, and sa most feedback naman is sa language focus context. So most errors sa communication context, dun siya may maraming pinakamali. Pero hindi dun banda most feedback in language. Hindi dun banda yung mas maraming feedback. Bakit? Kasi nga sa language focus context, bakit kailangan dun ng marami, kailangan dun ng feedback? Kasi ang lecture din or ang pinag-usapan niyo mismo is about sa language grammar. So, ang meaning nun is yung mga grammar rules nila. So, kailangan matama yun. Kailangan itama yung different yun para para malaman ng students yung basics and yun kasi yung topic and then yun yung center nung context na yun. So, language focus context. And parang kasi sa communication context, kahit mali yung grammar, hindi naman siya literal na i-correct ng student, ng teacher. Kasi nga, as long na naiintindihan or na-relay ng student yung kanilang ibig ipahiwatig, then acceptable. Pero yung sa context sa language focus, yeah, kasi nga ang focus ng context yun is about sa language. So, yun. And then, uptake highest in language focus. Uptake. Maraming respondent or student sa corrected feedback. In the study portion, this study highlights how the teaching context shapes learners' perceptions of feedback. For instance, so I might not discuss more recently with their learning goals into the accuracy, while children focus more on ayan. So, study 4, feedback. So, number 5, so study 5, so wala pa na tayo. Study 5 naman is now real to study 5. So, study 5 is conducted the Michael Long and study 5. Tama. Ferlin Sato in 1983. So, mention ayan, Sato. So, this is study about the types of questions that you ask in ESL classrooms, specifically the difference between display questions and the referential questions. So, pag sinabi natin display questions, ito yung mga questions na alam ng teacher yung sagot. So, ang example dito is yung, what is the past tense of go? So, dahil alam yung teacher yung tamang sagot, alam niya na rin if yung student is mali. So, yun yung display. So listen out for when. So this question check understanding. So pag sinabi naman natin referential questions, so referential question is also termed as genuine questions. So bakit genuine question? Because hindi alam ng teacher kung ano yung isasagot ng student. So hindi niya alam which part or saan banda magkakaroon ng error yung students sa utterance after. So, ang example ng question nito is yung, "What did you do last weekend?" Hindi niya alam. So, yun yung sa referential. So, ang main difference nila is yung sa display, checking knowledge, and then yung sa referential is for real communication. So, yung goal. So, during this study, so they found inside the classroom, teacher asks far more display questions than referential questions. But outside the classroom, in natural conversations, referential questions were much more uncommon. Oo nga naman, alangan naman sabihin mo sa labas yung classroom is ang topic niyo, anong past tense ng go? 'Di ba hindi naman gano'n. So, usually outside the classroom ang mga tanong is referential. So, hindi alam ng teacher. So, because of this difference, Longsan concluded that classroom interaction is greatly distorted version of real world communication. In short, the way teacher questions students in class does not reflect how real conversation typically works. So, yeah, so why this is a problem? So display question often lead to short, simple responses, usually one word pa nga eh. They do not push the learner to think or explain. For example, so, is this a banana? Ano sasabihin ng student? So, yes. So, now, compare mo yung display to referential. So, instead of sabihin, is this a banana? Tapos pointing sa picture ng banana, ang gagawin mo is, how do you store banana at home? So, anong nangyayari? So, ang magiging thinking ng students is i-explain niya, i-demonstrate niya, baka nga ikukwento niya pa kung paano niya lulutuin or paano niya kakainin yung saging na yun. So, referential question naturally lead to longer, more complex language which is better for language development. So, bakit language development? Kasi nga napupush natin yung student to think more sentence, more vocabulary use, so more practice. So even though display questions are often criticized, well, no nga naman, later, research argues that they can still be useful. So for example, pwede pa rin gamitin yung display so in terms. Like for example ito, a teacher may ask who usually lives in a palace. So the students answer kings. So dun sa interaction na yun, this display question, uh, it helps students understand the meaning of the word palace. So what's the best practice kung gano'n, kung meron namang good points ang display and meron din namang good points sa reflection. So the key dun sa best na paggamit ng ESL o classroom kung ano ba dapat para promote yung display or referential ba, ang sagot is balance. So, teachers should not avoid display question but they should not rely on them too much either. So, using more referential question, encourage thinking and communication while display question are useful for quick check and clarification concept. So, it's not one or the other. It's using both strategically. So side to side. So study six, we have uh, uh, study six, study eight. So wait. Study six. So study six is by Roy Lister, 2004. So medyo mali yun. So, sa kanila naman is want to know which pivotal is better for helping them fix their errors, recast, or prompts. Wait, napagpalit ko po ata. Since study 6. Hmm. So, yan. So teacher's question. So use social culture to repeat your question as scaffolding. Display question use meaningfully, support intervention, and participation. So study 6 is about the scaffolding. If you're familiar with the term scaffolding. So, mm, wait. So I think iba yung ano siya. Scaffolding is ito yung pag-guide ng teacher para mas maintindihan ng student yung isang lecture. So they use guide questions para ma-reach ng student, which is nagaguide niya yung student at the same time nag-e-engage yung critical thinking ng students. So the teacher question as scaffolding, display questions is meaningful and support comprehension and participation. So yun yung dito sa statistics na use questions as scaffolding. So parang follow-up question siya para magkaroon ng ma-engage yung critical thinking ng student. So yun yung file study number 6. And then we have study number 7, which is the open versus closed question. Ito naman sa open versus closed is para lang din siyang yung sa referential and display, in which open yun yung referential kasi nga nagkakaroon ng sorry, nagkakaroon ng mahabang reply is student, while yung close is yes or no. Open, yun lang yung sasagot. Ayan. Open question leads to more complex question and then prompts improve output. Why improve output? Kasi nga nagkakaroon na-engage na naman yung critical thinking ng student. They use more words. They are exposed. They have practice. So, however, it requires high teacher proficiency. So, like, high teacher proficiency kasi nga open, hindi siya nasa book. So, hindi siya scripted. So, ad-lib siya in which hindi sure kung saan banda magkakaroon ng error yung students. So, dapat kailangan ng proficiency, high proficiency ng students. So, that's the open versus closed question. study. So, study 8 naman is yung wait time by right and right turn. So, available, sobra. So, slim sa audio lingual, so, wait time. So, it is the classroom is sa audio lingual. So, wait time naman, ito yung gap ng silence o naghihintay ng respond ng students. So, usually, yung sa study ni White sa audiolingual is kapag nagtanong teacher and then after yung tanong na yun, naghihintay siya ng 1, 2 seconds para dun sa next step. If silence pa rin ng 1 to 2 seconds, so ang gagawin na ng teacher is pwedeng i-rephrase niya yung tanong, magtatawag siya ng iba, and so on and so forth. So, wait time and duration, yung wait. And so, which shift each student. So, more wait time. Ito yung nahanap ngayon. They conclude the more wait time, fuller responses. So, bakit? Kasi nga, this study nila is kapag daw mas short yung wait time, parang konti lang yung thinking process ng students and hindi nila kayang i-expose, hindi nila ma-express yung talagang iniisip nila kasi nga ESL sila, so hindi ito yung native language nila. So they undergone internal processing which takes a lot. So yun, so hindi kaya ng 1 to 2 seconds. So they conclude na kapag mas maraming wait time, mas maraming time ang student makapag-prepare ng sagot tapos magkakaroon ng full response. So, nasa balance between pressure and silence. So, I think yun lang yung sa akin. Mhm, mhm. Ayun, so in this summary, so this study shows the teacher must be conscious about how they manage silence in the classroom. So the strategic wait time is not just a pause, it's a crucial part of helping students process information and produce accurate, thoughtful responses. So wait time. So I think, yeah, I think that's all. Para sa corrected feedback on question and classroom. JB Mendoza, and good day po.